Greetings, everybody. This is Michael Fortunato. I'm the founding partner of Creative Insight Community Development and a community and economic development scholar, researcher, and practitioner. I am coming to you live today from beautiful Madison, Indiana. I'm also a creative artist myself. I'm a nationally touring musician and recording artist, and I play all over the country. Well, almost. Obviously, this past year has been a little bit of a monkey wrench in my plans. But I think I speak for every single musician out there that says, we really hope that things change soon. Now, here in Madison, we are trying to launch the Madison Music Movement, or M3, where we are trying to make Madison, Indiana, population 12,500, Indiana's music city. That's right. I know it's ambitious. We don't care. We're ambitious people, and we're all in this together. But we're working as an ecosystem and as a really energized community to lead our community development efforts with music. And why not? Music and the arts and creative industries more generally have actually surpassed agriculture in terms of contribution to GDP. It's unbelievable. So the arts are really happening, but are oftentimes some of the last to get the attention that they deserve in terms of their contribution to our communities, not just financially, but in terms of quality of life. And we know increasingly, quality of life is what really drives community development. Now, when it comes to research, I haven't been doing as much research these days, but I'm always interested in doing more because it's incredible what we still don't know about building a creative community from an applied perspective. So if I were putting a research agenda together for creative communities to really energize and capture the spirit and positivity and promise of especially smaller places trying to build a creative ecosystem, here's what I would do. Now you tell me what you think. Research priority number one, I just mentioned it already. We know that the arts and creative industries are actually surpassing many other industries in terms of their growth and in terms of what they contribute to GDP. And yet we have such a poor handle, I believe, on the policy mechanisms that could support arts and artistic development. We could find out ways to get more people in state legislatures and even in the federal government active and interested in supporting the arts and recognizing the contribution it makes to our society, even beyond economic growth. After all, agriculture has the USDA, and we just passed up agriculture, so why don't we have the USDA? U.S. Department of the Arts, I guess it's taken already. Number two, I believe that we really need to understand more about how the arts is driving quality of life in places and how this in turn drives economic development, which is really interesting because there is a recent report that came right here out of Indiana, out of Ball State, the Center for Business and Economic Research, and it showed that talented employees don't come to communities based on jobs. Talented employees show up because they want to live in great places, and then the companies often follow them. This is consistent with research that was supported by the Kauffman Foundation that actually showed that entrepreneurs oftentimes go to the communities where they want to live and launch a business 2 years or more before they even start the business. They go there, they fall in love with the place, they build their networks, they try to make connections, and then, only then, with what they've got lying around, they launch their business venture. So it shows a real primacy of place and an importance of creative placemaking that I think is still underestimated, and we don't fully understand all the dimensions of how creative placemaking and creative communities and creative community building, that means building an ecosystem, not just a great place. This is not just renovating buildings. This is building important relationships for community transformation and change. We are still just beginning to understand how those mechanisms work and how they can have a really lasting impact on places that may have been struggling for a long time. Number three, and this might be the most important one, or at least it's one of my favorites, is that I see so many reports and so many research outcomes that talk about the ways that the arts contributes to the local economy or to local population growth or this and that. And it's all outcomes focused. It's like the arts just goes into a black box and magic happens, and suddenly there's all these great things happening in a community. Any creative artist recognizes that it's not just about outcomes. Creativity is about process. The arts are about process. It's a process process of creating art. And sometimes that process isn't pretty. Sometimes it's really tough. Sometimes it can be difficult for years, and it's only later that it actually gets recognized for its own brilliance. Being an artist has never been easy. Well, the same thing about doing community development work based on the arts. Sometimes it's hard to recognize the true value of what you've got until long afterwards. Well, I think we need to focus more on the creative processes that lead to effective, creative, and artistic community development. This is very similar to an area where I do a lot of work on entrepreneurial ecosystems and ecosystem development. The arts are an ecosystem too. We oftentimes just don't see it that way, and we oftentimes fail to understand that the arts aren't this magical being that just creates different kinds of outputs. It's about relationships and building the right relationships to support artists, to inspire people, and to bring more people into the mix. Number 4. Hey, theorists. Any theorists out there? I sure hope so. Guess what? Have any of you been just as frustrated as I have that when you go to the innovation literature, they always seem to be talking about tech? You know what else is innovative? The arts. By definition, even before there was advanced technology, the arts have been innovative for thousands of years. So there seems to be this really big gap in the literature between understanding innovation processes through a purely productive technology sort of a lens versus a more artistic and creative approach, which oftentimes leads to excellent business ideas that can be high or low tech and that result from the synergies and intersections of different ideas, different perspectives, and also just new ways of looking at the world. Maybe it's because tech companies are making so much money, but you know what? Arts companies also make a huge contribution and in the aggregate have a profound impact on our economic life, but most especially on the quality of the lives that we live every day in our communities. Bonus round, I forgot there's a number 5. We haven't talked about inclusivity and democracy. What I find interesting being here on the ground is that there's a lot of talk about how we can get creative communities up and running. And in many of the places that I go, I notice that oftentimes there are marginalized groups that are already doing it, but they're not getting the attention that they deserve because they're not at the table or they're not doing things that are considered to be mainstream. I think there could be a massive research effort to understand inclusivity and diversity within the artistic space and who is at the table, not just what's at the table, not just which art is at the table, but understanding who actually has access to not just resources to create art, but to make a contribution back to their community. Because we know that innovation sits at the nexus of diversity, and we can only get that diversity if we also embrace inclusion, and embrace inclusion broadly. I'm talking about diversity when it comes to marginalization, when it comes to race and ethnicity, but also age, gender, socioeconomic status, educational background, favorite color, favorite time of day, anything that you can possibly imagine. There are all sorts of ways to stimulate diversity in your community by reaching out to people who normally are not at the table and making sure that they have a creative voice. So that's it from me. Wherever you are, I hope you're staying warm. I hope you're staying safe. From beautiful, snowy Madison, Indiana, where we're building one of the best creative communities in the United States, this is Michael Fortunato. I hope you're all having a wonderful conference, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care, be well, stay creative.